Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. For those who never been here before, my name is Jakub, and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Tonight, for the next half an hour, 1 hour, I'm going to be reviewing your photos. And if you've never been here before, what I do is I take your images and then I look at three aspects of them. I have a look at the technical part, when I look at the data of the image, how you capture it, and hopefully give you an advantage and advice on how to do maybe better in the future. Then we look at the artistic part. That's when we look at the composition and the colors and the subject and see if there are maybe some opportunities on how you could do better. And finally, at the end, I take the image and maybe apply some editing to it just to give you some tips and tricks on how you could improve your photo editing. So anyway, if you want to join us in the future, or maybe already for the next episode, all you need to do is to jump on our website, cleverphotographer.com/membership, join us there. And other than access to this photography review show, where I'm going to be reviewing live your images here on my YouTube channel, as well as our Clever Photographer Academy, you will also get access to monthly bundles full of overlays, presets, textures, and much more. Anyway, that is all out of the way. So it's time to look at your images. So I'm just going to switch it here. So we have three photographers, and we're going to start by looking at pictures from Evgeny or Yenia. So we have two images from him. We have this lovely chipmunk, and then we have the bee. So let's start with the chipmunk. And once again, we're going to be looking at the images from the technical part. So let's have a look at the first one. So ISO 200, 300 millimeters, then f8 1/90th of the second with the Pentax camera. So ISO 200 is perfect. Kind of when we zoom in, let's have a look. There is not much noise at all. The sharpness is great. I really like that. I also really like the light, how it's kind of diffused on the main subject and animal. That's looking great. I really enjoy that. And then overall, it's a very, very lovely picture. It's very kind of lively, nicely saturated, and really technically there is not much I can say or I would do differently. With the f8 still giving you the sharpness and nice details all the way through, so technically very well done on this image. Moving on the image number 2, which is this bee sitting on the flower. Let's have a look at the details here. So again, same camera, same lens, and looking at the data, again, ISO 200, 300 millimeters lens, and this time it was shot with f11 and 1/350th of a second on the shutter speed. I really like the level of the details again. It's very, very, very nice. Especially we get the details on the animal and on the actual flower all the way through. So the shutter speed, I think, works very well here. It's quite nice and crisp. The f11 with a 300 millimeters give you a really nice depth of field, which I think works very well here again. And really, again, the colors are nice. I quite like the light. Yes, there are some shadows, but in overall, I think the image is very good. So well done on this one. Well done, technically well captured. And let's talk about the artistic part. So talking about this image right here, when it comes to the artistic part, obviously the subject is clear. It's really straightforward. I really enjoy that. Now it's in the center. So once again, very clear there. I think your eyes immediately kind of catch that. Again, I really enjoy the colors. So I think the composition is quite nice. If anything, I would maybe crop it a little bit more, which we can do right away here. And I would probably crop it just a little bit tighter on the subject itself, just maybe something like this, which would just make a little bit more impact for me, and it would bring more attention on the animal itself. Now you could move it a little bit around if you would want to. You could do maybe something like this and leave it there, but this is what I would do with it. I would just crop it, and the rest of it is really, really nice. Obviously, as always, maybe just to add a little bit more attention to the center of the image, you could use a vignette, very simple vignette with just some minus amount to get little darker areas around, just again to bring more attention on the animal. And if you would want to, you could brighten up a little bit the animal as well. So we can really do that very simply by bringing up some exposure and then just by painting over the animal. So let's make the brush a little bigger. and just paint over it and end up with something like this. So this is it. So I think artistically, I would just crop it a little bit more. However, I think the picture is already really nice from start. So very well done here. Now, coming to the second image, let's take it and also move it into edit module here, and let's have a look at it. I think the first one is a little bit more straightforward when it comes to artistic part. The animal is there, all the colors, the light is really nice, and it's really clear. Here, I think lots happening. There is lots of distraction with the flower itself here. Also, there is some parts where you have a little bit of softness and blurriness, and some other parts where you sharp. So it's just maybe not as straightforward. I would have wished that you would have gone with the camera maybe a little bit higher, so then we have little easier view on the actual animal. I think that would have helped a little bit there. So maybe with the camera up a little bit, and even in the post-processing, I would maybe just soften the background a little bit more. Otherwise, I think it works very well. I think the crop is good here. I think that works quite well for me. Again, you could maybe just close it even a little bit more with a little bit of vignette there. And again, you could do a little bit of dodge and burn, but in our case, just maybe a little bit of just kind of brightening of the main subject to bring a little bit more attention to it. Rest of it, really, really nice. I'm really happy. So Evgeny, really nice captures. The first one I love, it's great. It would really need for myself, I would just crop it a little bit differently. The second image is still very good. It's a great capture. Obviously, all things put together, it's really nice. It has a lovely light, lovely saturation, great level of details. But maybe I would just kind of go with the camera a little bit differently to make the subject, the main subject, a little bit easier to be spotted and easier to be recognized. So that's that for Evgeny's picture, and we're gonna move on next photographer, which is John Dalston. John, two images to have a look at. So we have this dog and girl portrait. Girl, because I obviously seen the lady before. I've seen in some of the past review shows. Lovely capture in black and white, which I think works very well here. And then we have this really moody winter capture, which I love as well. So let's have a look at it. Let's start with the first image right here, and let's have a look at the camera details. So Nikon D850 with a 24 to 70 millimeters f2.8 lens, and on your camera settings, ISO 125, 70 millimeters, 5 on your compensating, f5.6, and 1/250th of a second. 1/250th of a second give us this really nice sharp details on the animal. The f5.6 on this lens, I'm guessing, giving us the little softer face at the back, just creating kind of background and setting up a scene, which I think works super well. So I really like that. So in overall, I think the camera setting is great. I wonder how the 70 millimeters work for you. I never really tried that before. 55 millimeters, 24 to 105 are maybe some of the ones I go for. However, still lovely capture. And I think the setting technically are great. The sharpness on the main subject is really, really nice. And I really like how you played with the depth here and making the girl and the second subject a little bit softer, just to give some depth of the field and work with that. Now, moving on this image right here. So let me see, was it the same camera? Same camera, different lens this time. This time we are on Nikon D850, still 35 millimeters, f1.4. And from the camera settings, ISO 64, 35 millimeters, f1.4, and 1/1000th of a second. So let's just zoom in, have a look at the details. The details are great. I really like that all the way through. So that's really good. There is a little bit of noise there, but often with this kind of fog and mist, you get this kind of noise. So I'm not surprised by that. That's something that happens regardless on the ISO, and it's something you would have to remove in post-processing. The only thing I'm noticing is there's like a little bit of darker blue glow in this area over the tree. So that's just something I would keep an eye on and see what it's coming from. Not really sure why. It's just some areas, because It doesn't really look like it's a picture where you would replace sky or anything. Maybe sometimes when we really push the post-processing, we get this kind of halos around. So just something to keep an eye on. The rest of it is great. I think technically set up very well. So it's just the halo which I was looking at earlier, and I wasn't really able to say what is it from. So we have the tree and we have the portrait. So talking about the portrait and talking about the artistic idea here, I don't think that necessarily I would do anything differently. I think the square crop works very well here. I think it's really nicely positioned where we have the dog in front. There is some space in front of him. He's obviously looking away. The sharpness works very well here. And then the girl at the back just kind of peeking over. I think it's really cool that the eye is there with the ear and the hair. I just think it works very well. It's very smart shot, which would work very nicely as a part of the series. So altogether, really, really cool. And artistically, I can't really add anything to it. I think the black and white also works really well here. So in overall, I'm really happy with this image. When it comes to post-processing, I think it's really nice. I think it's very nice, crisp, clean, black and white. For me, with just enough of contrast, blacks and whites. So I would just leave it this way. Great picture and nothing much to add here. So we're going to take the second image and again, look at it. And from artistic point of view, obviously our focal point is the tree, which I think works really, really well. There is a great contrast between the white and the dark tree. There is not much of thing happening in the foreground. So again, very clean view of the tree. So I think that works very well. I really enjoy the moody blue look you add to it. I think that works really well for this time of the year with the ice and with the frost on the grass. I think that's great as well. So really on this image, the only thing I would look at is the glow. I don't know exactly how we could kind of fix that, especially knowing that this, I think, is a JPEG. It is a JPEG. So I can't really do much here, but I would come back to the picture and have a look at what is the glow coming from. Other than that, I think when it comes to cropping, I think it's cropped quite nicely. And it's just a really lovely picture. I really like it. Very minimal, very moody, very well put together with the duck as well there. It just, everything works together. I think it's great. The focal point of the tree, kind of telling the story altogether, very well done. John, thank you very much for sharing your images with us. Make sure you send more for us for next week. Same goes for Evgeny. And we have one more photographer to look at. So this time Zdeněk, all the way from South Africa. We have two images here to look at. So let's start with the flower. Now, starting with the flower and looking at the camera details, we are looking at Canon M6 with a 15 to 45 millimeters lens. When it comes to camera setting, it was ISO 160, 45 millimeters, f16, 2.5 second on a shutter speed. So the black background, I think, works really nicely here, although some of the light for me seems to be just a little bit harsh here. You can see some of the highlights being really, really strong. I really enjoy the drops. I think that's really nice. And I really enjoy the level of details. So looking at the camera setting, ISO 160, great, no noise as far as I can see. F16 is a little bit higher on my side, but I understand that maybe you need to work around with the shutter speed. The shutter speed, 2.5 seconds as well, is a little bit long. So I wonder if the background was black initially, or if you work with that. That would be my question on that side. However, still, technically, I think it's quite nicely done. The only thing is, I think that the light is kind of not, it's just very even, so it doesn't create any story on the front part. Maybe at the bottom, you know, where the stem comes and everything, there we get a little bit more darker areas, but this, I think, is just a little bit too strong for me. But technically, I just wonder why the f16 2.5 second, so maybe just something to look at for a future. Zdeněk, technically on that one, let's have a look at this image right here. So we have more kind of like a, this is like a park, so landscape capture, where looking at the camera, it was Canon 77D with a 24 to 105 lens, and the camera details ISO 100, so spot on there, 24 millimeter, which is a great wide view right here, f11, so gives you details all the way through, and 1/20th of a second, 1/20th of a second on the shutter speed. So I think the capture is really, really nice. Now, obviously, it's just a lot of things happening. So I wonder if you could have maybe bring the f-stop down a little bit to somewhere around, what could you do here? 4 maybe, and get just a little bit more softness at the back, just so it has a little bit more depth of the field. That's what I would maybe have a look here. Otherwise, I think the setting is right. Again, ISO 100, f11 and 1/20th of a second. Now, I think maybe we have a Zdeněk with us, so let's have a look. So coming back to the image, this, first of all, I think says that the background was black, so it probably was in a studio. So maybe I'm assuming in that case maybe you used flash, so just a little bit to bring it down, just to get some of the highlights away. That would be my idea on that one. And then on the second picture, which we were working on here, the message was saying that it was HDR. Now, HDR on this image, what was I would be my first question if I would see image like this would be, what was the idea behind why HDR for this scene? Was it that the light was so complicated that you needed details in highlights, shadows, and also midtones? Or was it just to create the HDR look, which, by the way, isn't really strong here? I really enjoy the capture because I think the HDR isn't that kind of over the top, which is not really that popular anymore. So the fact that I was looking at it and I didn't know it was HDR, I think is really, really great, because then you don't have to, so it's like when you do sky replacement and people don't comment on it, means that you've done quite a good job replacing it. So same with the HDR. I think it's a technique which works very, very well, as long as it's not too visible, that you use it for your advantage when you need details in certain parts of the image. Anyway, so that's technically on this one. Coming back to artistic part. So starting with the flower on artistic, I actually really, really like it. I think the idea of the black background in a contrast with the red and green, and in a contrast with really isolating it down, works really, really well here. The square crop, I would say it's a square, I think works very, very well here. And the only thing I wish was that it was just a little bit more locally adjusted. So what I mean by that would be that I would probably try to, in this case now, just add a little bit more vignette and maybe just place it in a way that we get a little bit more kind of darker areas around and more highlights in the center. You can also use the inner light here and just do something like this. And when you have a look at the before and after, you see how we just get in one point of the image where we bring some attention rather than focusing on the entire plant. I think that works really, really well. It's always the idea just to kind of guide the viewer at certain part of your image. And in this case, I think that works super well. So just simple vignette before and after, and I think the result is a little bit better. So that's what I would do artistically, and that's what I would do in post-processing. Maybe I would jump into the develop tool and just bring the highlights down a little bit, just a touch, maybe like somewhere around -30, just so the contrast between the colors and everything and the highlights is not as strong. That's what I would do there. And then the second picture right here, let's open it up. Now, for me, there's a lot of shadows, which takes lots of attention away. So I would probably, now we could make this black and white, which would be very interesting. That would be one approach we could do. After that, or we could really just turn down the colors a little bit, so make it less saturated. So let's say that what we would do is, let's close the image a little bit and let's play around with the leading line here. So we're going to use the vignette again and we're going to position it here. Then we're going to bring the amount down, not too strong, but maybe just somewhere around here. Let's just position it where we want it. So that's the first thing. Little bit of inner light there. After that, we can jump into the color, bring down the saturation a little bit, just somewhere around here, and bring up the vibrance just on some of the colors. That would be another thing. And what else could we do? After that, I would maybe jump into the creative section and use the mystical tool just to make it a little bit more mystical. I would maybe add a little bit of matte to add a little bit of matte into the shadows to make it a little bit more cinematic. and just take it from there. But looking at it, and when I'm editing it, I think the black and white would probably work the best here. So let's have a look. If we turn it into black and white and just play around with some of the colors, let's see, maybe the yellows down, the green a little bit. So what I'm doing, basically, I turn it to black and white, and now I'm playing around with luminance on a separate colors. So I think something like this. And then in dramatic, add a little bit of dramatic touch. Something like this. Let's have a look. Before and after, maybe just something like this. And now we could do a little bit of dodge and burn. So we could add a little bit of burn. Let's make it a little bit bigger, the brush, and just kind of highlight the path. That would be one thing. Bring down the exposure a little bit. Maybe also and over the bench, and just really guide the viewer through here. And then equally, you could then make some parts a little darker by bringing the exposure down, using the masking again brush, and this time just making some of these parts a little bit darker. So I think something like this. Maybe that's a little bit too strong on exposure, but let's just leave it somewhere around here. Now let's have a look at it before and after. And I think in black and white, it's quite cool. So something different to do. Anyway, so those are the images for Zdeněk. Zdeněk, thank you very much for sending them over. And I really hope that I will see more of your pictures next week when we will be back again with the live session here. So those are the images for this week. Thank you very much all for joining us. And most importantly, make sure that you join us for next episode, which will be next Monday, again from 6 p.m. UK time. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel where you can see exactly when it's going to be, together with your time wherever you are around the world. And once again, if you want to join us, head to our website cleverphotographer.com/membership. Join us there and send us images for next week. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub Bors, and I can't wait to see you on our YouTube channel or other social medias soon.